Well, hi there. You're watching and or listening to Podcast is Broken, a weekly podcast where we try to make Canadian news and politics funner. My name is Brittlestar.
I'm Steve Boots, and I think we make it mirthful.
Ooh. My name's Lisa, and I think we make it funerific.
I like it.
Ooh.
It's good.
Fantastic.
It feels retail ready is what it feels.
Right?
It feels nice.
We'll start on the totes immediately.
Exactly. You guys are doing well? You're doing all right?
Doing fantastic.
Things are good. Yeah, things are
Fantastic.
good.
Steve, you were in the nation's capital recently?
I was indeed. It was a lovely trip. I saw my first cybertruck out in the wild.
Oh,
Tell us
they're
everything.
so adorable
Sincerely,
when they're running free.
It looked like an old Samsung refrigerator got wheels.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
It was a truly atrocious vehicle.
It looks like cardboard boxes, like taped together, really, with wheels.
It looks like it's from PlayStation 2.
Was it? This is going to be so cool in 10 years. Was it getting a lot of attention?
No, not at all. Nobody cared.
Really?
No.
Love it.
Interesting.
People looked briefly and went, God, what an eyesore, and then carried on with their days.
It's a bold statement to drive around in a Cybertruck, I think.
Yeah, a
lots of
statement
reasons.
of, I have $80,000 to throw away.
It must be more than $80,000.
It's got to be more
I don't
than
even
that.
know. I took a random number and it felt low as I was saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
It's gonna
I
be
think they're
so
like
much more than
160.
that.
I think they're double that at least.
It's all big and metal. It's like,
Right.
it's got to
Yeah.
be like one.
I forgot it's
130.
made out of galvanized steel, like every intelligently designed car.
Yeah,
For when
with
the
those, like,
apocalypse comes.
finger
yes.
chopping doors and all that kind of stuff.
Fire coming out the side.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Okay, my favorite genre of like Twitter video for a while there was people uploading themselves, injuring themselves or their Cybertruck, trying to show it off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I won't crush my finger. Oh, God, get my hand.
Yeah. It's not only a truck, it's also a Cuisinart. Let's get on to things. Lisa, you didn't go anywhere, did you? Did you go anywhere, Lisa?
No, I did nothing.
Exactly.
Just existing.
That's fine.
We appreciate you for it.
Exactly. Someone needs to watch the old homestead.
I'm good with that, right?
That's what I did too as well, actually, so it's not very exciting. Let's get into the conversation of the elections you only think you don't care about, is what I called today's episode.
I like it.
And 3 provinces, 3 elections, 10 days, which is quite something. 3 provinces, 3 elections in 10 days. Canada's political stage is heating up, and the stakes couldn't be higher for BC, New Brunswick, and Saskatchewan. What's at risk, you ask? Did you ask that? Probably.
The mental
Power-
health of journalists.
Exactly. Power, progress, and policy in a battle of the ballots where familiar faces face fresh challenges. That's putting it nicely.
You need to say that in a
dun.
Michael Buffer voice.
Who's Michael Buffer?
He's the let's get ready to rumble guy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just like announce it
I
like
can
you're doing
try.
a fight.
Okay. Power, progress, policy. No, that's Joe Biden. Sorry, I couldn't do it. I'm not there yet. I'll practice and I'll do it next week.
Yeah, just you slip into Biden so easily. You know how
That
it
thing. Exactly. That's more telling than I want it to be. So
which province do we want to start in?
Well, there's BC. Let's do it in order because BC is October 19th.
Okay.
New Brunswick is October 21st. And Saskatchewan's October 28th. So let's just do them chronologically. You know what I mean? In sense of urgency, in order of urgency.
Let's do.
Of grave concern.
Exactly. In BC, the candidates are David Eby, who's BC NDP. He's the incumbent premier, of course, seeking a 3rd term. John Rustad is the BC Conservatives, hoping to flip ridings from the NDP. And Sonia Furstenau, BC Greens, aiming to make a strong showing in this tight race. Here's the problem I have with BC. And I love BC.
Oh, here we go.
I love BC.
Get your letter writing. Heads ready,
Politically,
everybody.
Just toe the line, BC. Just fall in line. We don't need any of this goofy BC NDP who are just kind of like the Liberals, but then the Conservatives are more like the Liberals. And make it easy for everybody else. Because whenever there's an election in BC, I don't know who to root for. I don't know who's good, who's bad. I just think they're all mixed up names.
Okay. You know what's even worse? Not only have the BC Liberals changed to the BC United and then ceased to exist, and now there's BC Conservatives, the NDP are suing or taking the elections BC to court in order to, I think it's to change the order of the wording of conservatives. It's like BC Conservatives versus Conservative Party of BC or something like that.
Okay.
It's supposed to be BC Conservatives, but the propaganda that's going out is just emphasizing conservative. And that's not the proper name of the party that is running, right? So I think that's their... What else are you going to do 10 days before an election?
I got it here. So it is currently just Conservative Party. And the concern is that they are framing themselves as being affiliated with the federal Conservative Party when they're not. So they want them to be the BC Conservatives or the Conservative Party of BC. Really focusing on the key issues here.
Confusing. I don't like it.
That's the point.
No.
Yeah.
It's intentional.
No.
Is it intentional?
Yeah. Like, it's intentional in that the further west you get, actually, that's not even true. I think it's just kind of unanimous starting in probably Saskatchewan and moving west. Anti-federalism is the move. Anything against Ottawa is the move. And so the more affiliated you are with the federal brand, the worse you do. Like, it's the federal brand is so toxic at a provincial level for basically every party. Like, every election cycle, NDP supporters argue about whether or not their affiliation with the federal NDP helps them. Every election cycle. And so that's kind of where we wind up here, is that these parties keep changing their names and disaffiliating and kind of angling themselves away. And like the BC NDP end up at odds with the federal NDP all the time on everything forever. But it's because they're just trying to isolate themselves from the federal brands. Like, that's why the BC Liberals changed their name to the BC United, even though it collapsed in the polls. Because the Liberal brand in BC had grown so toxic that they were just trying to step away from it.
I think a lot of people, like, who don't live in BC or near BC think of BC as like, all incense and like, like high property values. Yeah, exactly. Sure. And so, like, I don't know if they have that perspective of like the further west you go, the less you like Ottawa. I mean, I think Alberta has the cap on that, but the parties, when you look into the parties, like the parties aren't actually that left. Like, no. I mean, the Greens maybe. I don't know. I haven't really looked into the Greens. Never do. But, sorry, Elizabeth.
Typical Alberta.
I know. But it seems to me like you're right. It's like the Liberals, but where the Liberals are sort of like 1980s conservatives, and then the conservatives are like the alt wrong that we're seeing now. Like, it seems to grade to the right. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, it seems to me that way.
Well, so I would suggest that this same sort of thing seems to happen across Western Canada, and it happens in sort of different degrees, and it's a little bit more region bound in Vancouver, specifically in Victoria. But what you wind up having happen is the more a province becomes an extraction economy or a resource exploitation economy, the more conservative its broader politics tend to wander. And a lot of that is just because their economic fortunes get so pinned to like resource development and deregulation and that sort of stuff. That's what sort of spurs things along. And it's where a lot of people's jobs come from. And so you have these people working in these resource sectors, and they get pushed conservative because their livelihood relies on that sort of stuff. And they view those more left-leaning things as a threat to that. Like, they'll view that's why climate change is such a hot topic. It's not that people have this sort of like vested interest in denying climate change, or this sort of like ideological interest. They have a vested interest. Their living depends on the oil industry going, or the logging industry going. And so the whole thing sort of nudges conservative. And because sort of that Vancouver, Victoria, big city portion of BC isn't quite as resource dependent, but once you get outside of that, it's agriculture and resource development. And tourism, but like, and those are kind of the biggies.
They're a port province, right? Like, there's not many of us that have ports. So, I mean, it's an important province for like trades and things like that. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. But just like you wind up with sort of like one very liberal leaning province kind of isolated in a specific area, and then something that much more resembles every other Western Canadian province once you get out of that.
There's a couple things. One is it's interesting that, as you go west, there's just a general dislike of anything federal, anything Ottawa. And what's funny about that is that whenever I go to the West Coast, or if I go to Alberta, less so Alberta weirdly because it doesn't feel far enough, but certainly when you go to the West Coast, I always remark to myself like, I can't believe I'm still in Canada. This is amazing. Because you do feel like totally separated from everything else. You feel like this is way the hell out. Even though, of course, Canada's Canada, but at the same time, I understand that. But the big issues, of course, for the BC election are affordability and housing, electoral realignment, changes to electoral boundaries, and the addition of new ridings, and political fatigue and desire for change. Ugh, fatigue.
So tired of fatigue.
I'm so tired of fatigue.
The problem is this always winds up happening where people get tired of the existing party. And so they suddenly become open to voting for somebody who's bonkers.
Yeah.
And Roostad is wild. If you're not familiar, the conservative leader, John Roostad, basically says like a different bananagrams thing every day. Yet today it was he wants all BC court proceedings to be publicly available online. And so like if there's a sexual assault trial, a family trial, or a family court proceeding, whatever it may be, all of it, you want your worst day imaginable in the public view on camera for our entertainment, there you go.
So he doesn't agree with publication bans for the safety of victims.
No, sir.
Why would we care about that? Okay.
We're just going to pretend those exist for no reason.
It's not like pay-per-view. He realizes that, right? Like it's not HBO. Like we're just going to anyway.
And just like thing after thing, like they very much become an anti-everything party.
Mm-hmm.
And so the NDP are not the most inspiring group in the world, like one of their big policy announcements was something along the lines of like no bus fare for seniors after a certain time or something like that. And it's like, guys, this is the best you got?
Like, to be fair, it gets the seniors vote. Like, to
exactly.
be fair.
I know, but it's like, if you're going to do reduced bus fare, at least do it.
But you're going to have a bunch of old people going, you want me to go out after 4 o'clock? That's not happening. Yeah.
We got to get their early bird special and get home to bed. Come on.
Exactly.
Let's be real.
Rustad is quite an interesting character because very rarely do you have, in my mind, in my memory, it's been rare for a Canadian premier or provincial premier candidate to have to apologize for equating the Nuremberg trials in Nazi Germany to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is kabonkers.
He didn't understand the question.
Which
made a mistake.
Really funny because he actually repeats the question back.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, you understood it, dude.
Yeah, but if you read his epiphany moment about when he, got the jab and then, wasn't feeling well and it's related to the jab and then he turned from whatever the Liberals were to anyway. He's made that trek, right, of becoming the anti-vax, ultra-conservative, get rid of vaccine mandates, medical freedom for everybody, but not for everybody because we're still going to throw, people dealing with addictions into forced treatment, like that kind of stuff, right? It's just, he's picked up the paper copy of whatever got passed around by Poilievre, and now they're just all reading from it. So
do you think he is a true believer, or do you think he's like a Danielle Smith style pure opportunist?
Yes, the latter. I think the latter, for sure. I think that he's. I think that Rustad, Danielle Smith, Poilievre. Earlier on, a little less so now, but still going strong now, is like any sale they can make. Every new supporter is a sale they can make, and they don't care how they get it. That's how you get Rustad saying things like to the stupidest question. If Rustad, if he is for Nuremberg 2.0, and he doesn't hear the question, then asks for it to repeat it, It says Nuremberg 2.0. Yes, that's something outside the scope of in terms of the jurisdiction of British Columbia. First of all, normal people would be like, no,
what the
I'm not
fuck
talking to you.
about? Yeah,
Get out of here. Shut up.
This is a real easy. No, we're not doing that.
And then he follows it up with, but we would certainly be participating with other jurisdictions as we look at those sorts of issues. So what he's saying is, that's a ridiculous thing. It's outside the scope of the province. But listen, if it goes ahead, I'm your man.
Right?
I hate it.
They remind me of, don't write in, MLM bosses. It's like, we're going to try this. We're going to try selling this because we're going to make millions. And then that doesn't work. And then they go on to a different thing to sell. Yeah. Like they just hip hop around with that.
So I'm off of leggings and I'm now selling greens powder.
Right? Exactly. These essential oils have changed my life. Yeah, exactly.
All I have to do is sign up 3 more BC conservatives and
I think in a lot of the kookiness of what Rustad is saying, there's a lot of like very concerning policy too, like the insurance company stuff that he wants to do, where he basically wants to overhaul the system in a way that's going to hand over tremendous sums of money to the insurance industry, cost BC residents tremendous sums of money. It's he wants to do similar changes to what Alberta did that has led to Alberta having just bonkers expensive car insurance, like about 3 times more than anywhere else in the country. And he's like, yeah, that's us. Give it here.
But do you feel like he's just taken like bits and pieces from like other conservative premiers? And I mean, in one of his tweets, he even quoted Pierre, common sense, change, whatever. But it's like he's Frankenstein the whole thing. Like he's we're going to take a little bit of this and we're going to take a little bit of this and we're going to put it together and, screw Soji and Rustad rebate, which drives me fucking insane. Stop making promises of cash. But that's what it feels like.
Those. We're going to bribe you with your own money, everybody.
Right?
And the people are just like, oh, yeah, look at this.
Yes.
This person got it on the ball. Sound financial management right there. Hoo-wah.
Right. One of the things that I was looking when I was looking at their platform is that, so when it comes to housing, because obviously housing is an issue in BC, but his pushes are not going to build or develop any, we'll say what would be considered lower income housing or like things like that, where people don't want them. So,
we're not going to build them where people don't want them.
So I guess they're coming to Alberta because nobody is going to want them, right? Like that's
okay. We're going to build all of those in some sort of formless void in the middle of the interior and just hope for the best.
Because when you point out lower income housing or affordable housing, you've already made it a negative thing. Like, just call it fucking housing. We're going to build housing. If you can afford it, you live here. If you can afford it, you live there. Anyway, sorry. That was a little bit of a rant.
Never apologize, Lisa. Never apologize. There's no need to. There's no need, especially here. This is a safe place.
Let it go.
You're among friends.
You're among friends. The good news is that the BC NDP, according to a Leger poll, have 47% of the vote. Conservative Party of BC has 42%.
Sorry, I was just thinking, thank God it wasn't an Angus Reid poll.
Oh my God. Let's do a quick tangent on that.
Sorry.
So, I'm glad you brought it up.
But of course, everything we're going to say in the next 5 to 8 minutes is entirely alleged and in no way legally binding.
Correct. The short story we're talking about polling companies, Leger being one, of course, Angus Reid, Nanos Reid, and all that kind of Nana's poll or whatever.
Nick Nanos. Nick Nanos, who has like the most TV name in the universe. He has a great name. Man.
It's awesome. It's a great name. Anyway, Angus Reid, turns out it's a real guy. And he's on Twitter, and he was on Twitter, and he made some comments that were a little bit... you shared a thing about a church burning.
Do you know what the church was? Do you know the nature of this?
Well, the church was not actually a church anymore.
Well, right. It was deconsecrated in 2013, sold in 2018, and was in the process of being turned into a 10-space condo development. So he was mourning the burning down of a condo development.
Yeah.
Are we surprised?
So, I mean, first of all, the sight of a church burning, I understand, might be distressing for some people. That's fine. And he shared it, though, however, basically blaming Trudeau, saying that people would just burn in churches left and right all the time now. And then shared a little clip of Trudeau saying, essentially, that he was cool with it. Obviously, not
heavily
the
edited
actual clip. Yeah, not the actual clip, and wildly out of context.
Just Trudeau walking around with a lighter, just lighting shit on fire.
Exactly. You know, if we rip these Bibles up, they'll make good kindling.
And the thing is, even if you're bothered by the sight you see, that's fine. It's okay to be bothered by that, and you can share that you're upset by what you saw or whatever. When you have a platform, especially one as significant as Angus Reid, there is a responsibility there.
There is. And that's the problem, because like Frank Graves is a really good example. Like Frank Graves, of course, is the guy who runs Ecos. And Frank does not like the Conservatives or Poilievre. And that's evident. However, the big difference being, and Frank came to Angus's defense, by the way, when people went mental on Angus. But the problem is that Frank doesn't share information that is not correct. Doesn't share misinformation. You might say, "Hey, listen, I don't like the Conservatives. I don't like Poilievre, but I'm also not going to just
skew the poll."
You guys hear that beep?
It's our fire alarm.
Sorry, I was like, "Is this something?"
Stop, drop, and roll.
Stop now. I can smell smoke. God, this has gone off we're off our tangent.
Shannon!
I haven't heard any cries for help or anything.
Okay, well, that's good. All right.
Yeah, as long as she gets low, she'll be fine.
Yeah. The interesting thing is when he posted his sort of not apology,
yeah,
it was more of like, the real problem here is that y'all believe this.
I think when he said TrueAnon and Praetorian Army or whatever he called them, it was just like, oh, come on, man.
We're done.
It's a vast conspiracy. It's like, no, dude, you were wrong and you posted a bad take and you really should just take the L here.
Anyway, this has been a Podcast is Broken tangent. Back on track now.
And we're not done. We still have a long way to go. Okay.
Exactly.
We need a tangent stinger.
We do. Get on that, Owen. Owen gave us the answer, by the way, to how much a Cybertruck costs. It's $150,000.
Ooh.
There you go. Moving over to the other side of the country.
Hold on, Rustad bad. Now we go.
Oh, Rustad bad.
We summarize that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Rustad. Let's summarize. It's a good idea. Rustad, a bit kooky. A little bit kooky.
Wackadoodle-doo.
Boring, but stay the course.
I also think it's worth noting that the theory that I continue to have, that a long campaign and a longer election cycle doesn't serve Pierre Poilievre, kind of is bearing out with Rustad here. The longer that he spends in the spotlight, the less people like him.
Yeah,
sure.
And the more that he has to lay out actual policy, the less people like him.
Yeah.
Like, they were pulling dead even. And like, the polls are still close, don't get me wrong. But there's been a pretty notable shift in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
That Nuremberg thing probably got a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Next.
And like, polls are polls. Like, I'm not even going to talk shit about anybody here, but like, they're not great measures of any of this stuff.
No, they're
look
not.
At ridings or anything.
I think, as it's been said before, there's a huge difference between what do you think hypothetically and who are you voting for right now. There's a huge difference between those two things.
They're useful, but don't bet your life on them.
No. Can I move on now?
Yes, sir.
We'll allow it.
Thank you.
Put me in that group. Go.
Moving to the other side of the country, to New Brunswick, one of I think the most underdeveloped and underappreciated provinces, by the way, is New Brunswick.
We never talk enough
like
about
New
them.
Brunswick.
I like New Brunswick too. October 21st is their election, and the candidates are Blaine Higgs, the guy seeking a third term as premier. Susan Holt, he's PC, Progressive Conservatives. Susan Holt in the New Brunswick Liberals. She's leading in the polls currently. David Kuhn, New Brunswick Green Party, and those are the three. The key issues being LGBTQ+, rights in schools, rent control, and healthcare.
Those aren't Higgs's main
things. He's not cool with that. He's like, what? Wait, can you slow down? Can you say that again? Hang on.
Hold on. Taxes. That's what he's, No, he's got his own campaign that he's running.
It's that strategy we keep coming back to, the dead cat thing, like the trying to get everybody focused on a culture war issue instead of the actual issues that are affecting their lives.
Yeah.
Like, education in New Brunswick is struggling in a bunch of ways, but like a bunch of communities have been without school buses for weeks. And they're just going to shrug at that because, oh my goodness, those kids might learn about gender. Right. And like their healthcare system is in massive trouble. Like they are struggling in so many different ways. And in the middle of all that, Higgs essentially burned his cabinet down over policy 713. And it's kind of all he's got. And he's throwing out his bribe again, saying, yeah, I'll cut the HST. How you going to pay for it? I don't know. It's fine.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Shh, yeah. Did he get rid of his cabinet, or did some of them leave after the whole...
A bunch of them left. Like, he burned his cabinet down because he lost multiple people as a result who were just like, you know what?
Because he's a big old bigot and they don't want to be near him. Sorry.
Well, and he splits the room in so many ways. Like, he's pretty famously not a huge fan of the French elements of New Brunswick. Like,
a large part of
a lot of people, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe don't piss them off. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's an article in the Canadian Press from September 20th talking about his lowest. Higgs had the lowest approval rating amongst Canada's premiers, which is saying something. That's pretty good.
Bravo.
He's right up there with getting a boil.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how he, in this article, he openly mused about how he's perceived by the public, suggesting people have the wrong idea about who he really is. Quote, I really wish that people could know me outside of politics. He had a meeting recently with a group in New Brunswick where he heard someone say, you actually have a sense of humor. I said, I've had that all my life.
Oh my God.
So that's the problem. Listen, it's not the LGBTQ plus stuff. It's the fact that he doesn't smile enough.
No,
that's the problem.
You should just smile more and you'll win the election.
This is such a classic politician thing, right? If you just put aside all of my policies that hurt individual people, I'm a great guy.
Yeah, if you ignore the fact,
I'm tremendous company if the people I hurt aren't in the room.
I feel like he's the kind of guy who sits on his front porch and like fires air rifles at people who come on his lawn.
No, he's not the air rifle guy. He's the one who like sends emails to the HOA, and he's just like, they are using a non-regulation mailbox, and I think they should be fired into the sun as a result.
And he's that grandpa, right?
He's working to change his image. Back in September, anyway, at a campaign rally, he repeated his pledge to smile more. Then he told a joke. This is pretty good.
Oh no, not the joke.
Higgs told the crowd how a Tory volunteer was canvassing voters during the 2014 election when a woman told her not to bother going next door because her neighbor had recently died. Quote, and this campaigner said, I'm so sorry, was she sick long? And the lady just said, oh, don't feel too bad. She was a liberal. Exactly. I mean, it's one of those things that is the kind of joke that you say in an awkward pause at a cocktail party, at a reception where you're just talking to someone privately and you're like, I'm just kidding around, I'm just joking around.
That is the kind of joke you say at a moment and the room gets weirdly quiet and that joke is going to haunt your nightmares for the next 6 months. You're just like, why the hell did I say that? Oh my.
But the good news for Higgs is that the approval rating poll that put him at the lowest approval rating at 30% in New Brunswick was an Angus Reid poll, so who knows?
But he's in a dead heat with getting a fungal infection, so you never know.
So don't start smiling just quite yet, Blaine. You might not need to. The whole thing might be a wash.
Worth noting, most of the polls are showing it's Holt, right? Is the
Holt
is in pretty good shape. Not running away with it, but looking strong.
When I read something about how, he's got his one campaigning item, right?
The HST cut.
Yeah. But then he was complaining about the fact that the other parties are like throwing a bunch of things at him and he has to spend a lot of time dispelling those things. It's like, no, those are things that are important that people like also need to have looked at. Oh, Blaine.
Yeah, so the HST at present is 14%. He wants to drop it to 13%, which would bring a total cost of about $450 million per year.
Which is, that's a chunk of change for a small province. Like, I mean, New Brunswick's not tiny by any stretch. Like, landmass is quite big, but I mean, population-wise, it's not a big place.
So what's he going to do with that money?
Half a billy between friends.
Well, but what are you going to do with that? Like, how's that going to improve?
Permission to soapbox for a second,
please.
Okay,
you need to get a soapbox. You need to actually get a soapbox that you can bring up.
Consumption taxes are just they're not a good approach to dealing with inequality in particular. And so the reason why is, and if you cut that tax by, I think, what did we say, 1% or 2%?
1%. Yeah.
If you cut that tax by 1%, a family that's making and spending $200,000 a year is saving what? $2,000?
Mm-hmm.
Family that's making $50,000 a year and spending that is saving $500.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, did I do the math wrong?
I don't know. I'm not very good at math.
Yeah, 500.
Yeah. It's just, it affects the people with money so much more. Like, you're going to save some real money when you buy a boat. You're not going to save some real money when you buy your groceries. At least not enough to have a major impact on your life. And so if you want to actually spend your money in a way that is well targeted to help the people who need the help the most, you send it to other avenues. Any other way, PST, HST, whatever it is not the most effective approach. And what winds up happening is it disproportionately benefits this sort of higher income window of the population from like 150 to 500 grand ish, because anybody making more than about 500 grand a year isn't really spending it. They're just accruing and accruing and accruing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to just with your Fabio as well. So it's terribly targeted, but it is specifically targeted to like mid-level executives who are just like the heart and soul of the Blaine Higgs conservatives.
It's that whole like equity versus equality, right? Like they're trying to put out this, this equal, everyone's going to save 1%.
Yeah, everybody gets a 1%.
Everybody gets a 1%. But when you're looking at, equity, it's an unfair distribution.
Yeah, 1% is very different for different people.
Yeah, exactly. Put it into social programs. Put it into things that universally people can use.
Spend that $500 million on, I don't know, healthcare, bus drivers, education.
Healthcare. Yeah. Cons don't care about health.
Listen, we could have done this whole episode about the Thermos Spa in Toronto. Don't even get me started on that.
That's just sad.
It's
like it's like I'm so sad about how pretty it was to be angry.
Well, to be fair, Ontario Place sucked for a long time.
It did, but like it's still like the park and stuff. Like to tear all of that down and just like pave it, basically.
Yeah. Oh, it was horrendous.
It's like, come on.
It's a terrible deal, but we'll talk about that another time.
That's another,
The good news is, as according to Nanos research, the progressive conservatives and the liberals in New Brunswick are neck and neck, 28% each. And the Greens are way behind at 10. And then again,
balance and power votes, though.
Undecided people are 23%.
Whoa.
Here's the thing. How do you hear two parties, one of which is like trans people should have rights and we should fund healthcare, and the other's like, nah. And you're like, who's to say? I got 3 weeks to pick.
If you're transphobic and you're healthy, you're like, you know what? Doesn't apply to me. I don't care.
Not my issue.
Yeah, exactly. God.
Oh, New Brunswick.
So that's October 21st. So we'll see what happens.
Make good choices.
Make good choices.
We believe in you, New Brunswick.
Yeah, exactly. We do. And we love New Brunswick, and I want to go back. And really, in New Brunswick, you should have more seafood than you do. I know you have a lot in Moncton, but I mean, why not Fredericton? Fredericton deserves some seafood.
There's no buses to bring it there.
Seafood doesn't have to travel by bus.
Well, it has to get to where it needs to go.
There's trucks for that. They kill it before they bring it. They don't got tickets for it.
Kill it before they bring it.
No, dude, it's so easy. If you want seafood, if you want good seafood in New Brunswick, easy answer. Drive to PEI.
See? kind of thing. We had everyone on New Brunswick on side. We had that. Everybody in New Brunswick was on side of the show, and then you had to go say that.
I was saying, just now the letters come in. I'm kidding, New Brunswick. I love you. You're a delightful place. You have plentiful seafood, and we respect you deeply.
Exactly. And one day I'll go back to the...
But make good choices.
That's going to get edited out immediately.
The Delta Resort. I'll go right back there, and it'll be lovely, and I'll have a pint of whatever the beer is.
Beer of the day?
Okay. It's really good. Wait, Fredericton the one with the Beaverbrook Gallery? Is that right? I think it is. Is it? No.
I don't know. I don't keep a lot of track of Eastern Canadian art galleries.
The one you didn't go into?
No. We went into it. It was fantastic. It had Salvador Dali, and it had Emily Carr, and it had all this. It was amazing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. And they have Picaroon's Brewery as well.
We're going to have to double check that, and if it's wrong, edit it out.
Exactly. If I'm incorrect in that, that'd be good. Just check it and edit it out. No, but I believe I'm correct. I believe it's Picaroon's Brewery is in Fredericton as well. I'm just making sure that Owen's not correcting me in the chat like he would know. Be like, oh, no, it's in Fredericton. Anyway, moving on. Saskatchewan. Anyone ever been?
Nope.
I've heard nothing but good things.
Drove through it once.
I've flown over it numerous times.
We are known as a flyover prophet.
Yeah. October 28th is the big day for Saskatchewan. Candidates, our favorite, Scott Moe.
Momo.
Incumbent premier seeking to extend his party's 17-year reign. Come
on.
Okay, Saskatchewan is the opposite of political fatigue, everyone else. Because everyone else is like, this is enough, it's too far. Saskatchewan's like 17 years. No, just keep it rolling.
There's so many bonkers things here, but like 17 years in power is wild. They are endlessly, relentlessly attacking the NDP for what they did in power 17 plus years ago. But also, here's your wild fact of the day. Scott Moe has been premier for 6 years. Longest serving premier in the country.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to me.
I know, right?
Okay.
If you worked at a business and the
longest person that's been man.
So the Saskatchewan NDP are the contenders, and Carla Beck is challenging Moe. And apparently, she's her hardest thing, not apparently, but rather her toughest battle is going to be in rural ridings. Is that correct? Does it sound right to you?
Okay, so yes, and it requires a little bit of context. So rural Saskatchewan has been like withering in different ways for 40-ish years for the same reasons that lots of rural communities are withering. Like the farms amalgamate into big corporatized farms. There aren't lots of jobs. Kids move away. All of the standard stuff. And so as that process happened, there was a conservative government in the late 80s, the Grant Devine government, if that name sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah. At one point, they had a murdering caucus, which was interesting. Colin Thatcher.
Oh, okay, right.
Yes.
He was actually an invited guest to the opening of the legislature last year by the Sask Party.
Nice.
Yeah, just roll in your murderer, buddy. But they...
Don't piss
Do we have to say allegedly before that, or has that been established?
No, he was convicted.
No, I think it was,
All right, that's fine.
Okay, allegedly, just to be safe.
Sure.
But so in the 80s, the Devine government essentially bought rural votes by keeping incredibly inefficient facilities open, like schools with like 30 kids, hospitals with nobody attending them, like all of this stuff. And so they were running up massive bills, debts on debts on debts on debts. They got run out. There was all manner of corruption and stuff that the conservative name got so poisoned in Saskatchewan that they shut it down and became the Sask Party. And so the NDP shut down a bunch of these rural hospitals and converted them into health centers. Like basically none were actually closed. They were just converted into health centers.
Okay.
A bunch of the schools got closed and amalgamated into other communities just because it didn't make any sense to have like two schools 50 kilometers away, or not even 50, 30 kilometers away from one another with 50 kids in each one.
Right.
Like bus them down the highway and put them together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so the Sask Party has been pushing the NDP of closed hospitals and closed schools which happened in the 1994 budget. And they're still like, the NDP closed schools and hospitals. And it's like, they close them because they didn't need to be there. But like, so there's this very odd rural entitlement that happens in Saskatchewan where a lot of rural voters are essentially like, well, how are you going to bribe me?
Yeah.
Right? Buy my vote.
Right.
And the Sask party has been coasting really, really hard on having that vote for a really long time, but they've gotten worse and worse. Like, municipalities are so frustrated. Every rural municipality is incredibly tired of dealing with the provincial government, but they also don't want to vote for the NDP because they close hospitals. So there's this third wackadoo party that has slid into the scene called the Sask United Party, led by John Hromek, primarily funded by John Hromek. He put in something like 400 grand of his own money. I can't remember the exact number, but a tremendous sum of his own money to finance the party. They had one seat. It was the person who lied with the vaccine sticker who had to go independent and then started her own party. I think we've been through that a few times. Nadine Wilson, if you want to Google it. But they're attacking from the right flank and trying to steal some of those frustrated conservative rural seats that wouldn't go NDP. So right now it's polling pretty close to a dead heat. So there's a chance of the NDP taking all the rural seats, the Sask party taking most of the urban seats, backwards. The NDP taking all the urban seats, which there's a pretty decent shot. The Sask party taking all or most of the rural seats, and maybe these United folks holding the balance of power? I don't even know, man.
I highly encourage conservative parties to split off and really advocate for the best interest of their constituents. And yes. Anyway, sorry, that's my TED Talk.
I'm fascinated when people's votes are so durable, regardless of what the politicians are doing for them. That's what I can't get. Like, when they don't make the party earn their vote in any real way, and they're just like every 4 years, they're like, cut my taxes a little.
What has Mo done? Like, what, like, I mean, Mo's done a lot, but I mean, like substantially, what has he done in his
stuff?
So their whole story is one of like economic growth. They're just like, we grow the economy, that's our thing. Economy. So like when they were asked about public services in Moose Jaw the other day, they basically said like, well, there's a canola mill. And it's like, cool. Yeah, if we build the canola mill, you can afford a school. Okay, but you have to build it, you see.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so they're very focused on economic growth, despite the fact that by basically every measure, our economy is going in the wrong direction. Like, we are below our GDP per capita that we were when Scott Moe came in. We are, if the number, this is my favorite statistic, the people who have moved out of the province under Scott Moe, net number of people who have moved out of the province under Scott Moe, would form the third largest city in the province.
Not mid-sized town?
That's mid-sized Tim Hortons.
Mid-sized town.
Mid-sized town.
We've lost just shy of 40,000 people to interprovincial migration in 6 years.
Where have they gone?
Primarily Alberta. Our primary export is Saskatchewanians again.
Is that the name for them? Saskatchewanians?
Saskatchewanians, baby.
There needs to be a tariff. Like, we need to pay you guys some money for taking all your people.
Yeah, apparently.
But like, it's so the level of backwards facing that you see in the NDP or in the Sask Party campaign is wild. They're just like, the NDP were bad in the 90s. You're like, okay, your government is old enough to drive. We need to stop blaming the old guys.
Yeah. Which is fascinating because you've got, like, at the beginning of this segment on Saskatchewan, we talked about how it seems to me like there's no political fatigue in Saskatchewan. And because, I mean, that's the same fight that the Liberals are fighting federally, is they have to either look back or point to a scary unknown future if they don't win.
How in the weeds do you want me to get here?
I mean, up to my ankles.
It's the news desert effect. So in the political fatigue is extremely real in the cities. The cities have had enough.
Right.
And like, it is shocking how uniform the polls are when it comes to that. Like, the urban polls and rural polls are so different. And it's because there's actual media coverage in the cities. Even if it's like not awesome in some cases, whether it be from, the amount of reporters or the fact that a bunch of it's post media or whatever it may be, it at least exists.
Right.
Right. That being said, shout out, there's lots of awesome journalists in Saskatchewan who are doing awesome work. It's just organizationally and structurally problems. But once you get outside of the city, what you're essentially getting is either CBC, which a lot of the people in the rural areas aren't listening to, or what is the AM radio stations are run by, there's primarily Rolco, which is like a broadcast company that's also just coincidentally a major political donor to the Sask Party.
Okay.
And so you get a very conservative leaning news. You had like a 4-hour a day hard right talk show that ran all day, every day until fairly recently. And then the former Regina chief of police took it over, and we're to believe that a chief of police running a news show is a very moderate thing to do. But they get this very conservative leaning dribble of information.
Sure.
And it all comes to them through a very specific filter. And it often doesn't even come through news. It comes through talk radio and Facebook.
Right.
And so the news desert is a huge issue that is driving a lot of this. It's the reason why that political fatigue hasn't really made it out to the more rural areas.
Right.
That was modestly in the weeds.
But if there was a desire to care about an alternate view, there's still the ability to source that out. So maybe there is that fatigue. Maybe there's because it's that generational voting, right? We talk about that all the time. And so if you're just hearing one side, you have to understand that the opposite side of that, and whatever third party this is, there's more stuff out there that you could look into if you wanted to. They just don't want to.
And you're seeing sort of the traditional march that all these conservative coalitions seem to take, which is they start to splinter off. And these conservative coalitions that have happened in different provinces, it's happening in Alberta right now. It's happening in Saskatchewan right now. It's even happening in the federal Conservatives. The hard right, like the Reforms or whatever it may be, or Wild Rose or whatever, come together with the more moderates, the PCs or whatever. In Saskatchewan, the Sask Party were formed out of a merger of the Liberals and the old Conservatives. And so over time, they keep shuffling just a little further in one direction and a little further in one direction. And it's usually the right, not always, but usually, in order to keep the motivated base, the people who show up to the leadership reviews, happy. And so eventually, the party gets hollowed out of those original intellectual moderates who started out in there. And so it gets more and more hardline. And in the case of a party like the Sask Party, they've been in power so long that the hardliners, who are really hardline and don't feel like they've been catered to, break off and form their own, and the other groups start to splinter off and support the NDP. So what you may find is legacy is really hard to let go of in Saskatchewan. You may find the Sask Party, once they are out of office, have trouble ever getting back in. Like, you may find that Sask United Party brings together another weird right-wing coalition and rebrands the conservative right in Saskatchewan yet again. I'd be 0% surprised.
So what's your, let's wrap the conversation up a little bit with, what's your take then? How do we think the election is going to go in Saskatchewan?
I hate that there are very real possibilities of minority parliaments with wackos holding the balance of power in Saskatchewan, and less wackos, just Green Party holding balance of power in BC and New Brunswick. But there's a decent chance of a minority legislature with the Sask Party. I honestly, if I'm a betting man, I think the Sask NDP managed to pull together a win.
I like that optimism.
Wow. Yeah,
and it's largely because it is almost impossible to be a five-term government in Canada. Almost impossible. Not impossible.
How do we feel about New Brunswick?
Liberals, pretty comfortably.
Comfortably.
I'm going to say by like 5-ish seats.
Hmm.
I like we're just asking Steve. This is good.
Yeah, no.
Because then it's all on him. BC.
I don't feel confident, but I'm going to say NDP. The trends are all moving in their direction.
Yeah,
Instead is not running a good campaign.
Well, that's pretty good.
I have a moral to the story, though.
Oh, please.
Don't vote for old white men. That's the moral to the story.
That's all we got.
It's all.
Hey,
no, it's not all we got.
Carla Beck has a very real crack to be Saskatchewan's first female premier.
That's what I'm saying. Don't vote in old white men. Let's do this.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Holt and New Brunswick.
I don't know if New Brunswick's had a female premier before, but regardless,
I don't
Holt
think
is.
so.
It's not a close race, but she'll be better than Higgs, confidently.
Yes, I feel.
I know very little about
Higgs
her, but I
hopefully
know with confidence she'll be better than Higgs.
Higgs will be like performing on Friday nights at the Legion, doing a stand-up routine anytime soon.
If you ever, for those watching at home,
she's liberal.
if you want to get a sense of the easy, natural charm of our friend Higgs, by just Googling Blaine Higgs dancing. He likes to dance at events.
Not doing it.
And at no point will he move his feet during said dance.
Steve, Lisa and I have learned our lesson. When you tell us to Google stuff, we're just not going to do it anymore.
No.
Exactly.
It's probably fine. Don't worry about it.
Nope.
Okay, we're going to finish off with something serious here. It's called Real Talk. I don't know. It could be called Real Talk. It's spelled R-E-L.
We need another stinger?
This is basically that was kind of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We can't use that one. We'll use something else.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to play a little game. And the game, we each get to give an answer to this. The game is called, it's the cleaned up version, the political cleaned up version. And it's called Bonk, Marry, Banish.
Bonk.
Yeah. Bonk, Marry,
Bonking
Banish.
Meaning... Is that like the violent bonk or the romantic bonk?
The bounce.
I don't know. Listen, I'm not here to judge how you guys do it. That's up to you guys. But
okay.
I'm just thinking about
keep it in your bedrooms.
Exactly.
Heavens.
Bonk, Marry, Banish. And here we go.
I thought it was Banish. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, Banish, because it's a little bit of alliteration. I had to give up on the Marry part in the middle.
Okay.
It's based off another game with a slightly different wording that I'm not going to use. Because I felt it was a bit too severe.
Okay. We were all able to suss it out.
I think everybody knows.
Yeah. There's lots of clues. Bonk, Marry, Banish. Choose which province of these three you would bonk, marry, or banish. So your choices are BC, New Brunswick, and Saskatchewan. Who would like to go first?
Version of this where we don't get letters, dude.
Yeah, I know.
It's not the people of.
Well,
could be.
Okay.
Exactly. Who's going first?
I'm going to say banish New Brunswick for the exclusively for the reason that it would get rid of the Irving family.
Okay. That's
just
banish.
take them right off the board.
What a bonk and marry now?
Marry Saskatchewan because I live there.
Okay.
That's a long-term relationship, and you go to Vancouver for a visit, I guess. So,
did you air quotes that? For a visit. Good. I see how it is. I get it.
There were no air quotes. Don't ascribe air quotes to the people who don't pay to see me not make air quotes.
Well, that's right. If you want to see some good air quotes.
Yeah, exactly.
There were no such air quotes.
I thought he was holding up two rabbits.
I didn't pick
Lisa?
any of the ones Steve did. Okay, so I'm going to banish Saskatchewan.
Hey!
Because it's
I like this.
There's no use. There's no ports.
Use. Period. That's the clip right there.
We can all grow grain and fucking potatoes. So like, bye-bye.
Oh, my God.
So bye-bye. Bye.
That was harsh.
We're in a outstanding place to store all of your
looked at that tactically and said, which province could I affect the least amount of people and offend them the least?
Right?
Both of our Saskatchewan listeners will be livid.
It's fine. We're gonna bonk.
We love our Saskatchewan listeners.
We're gonna bonk New Brunswick because I feel like they're fun.
Oh.
I feel like they're fun. They're a good time, right? They don't take themselves too seriously, right? Yeah. Not a lot else to do. It's all good. And then we're gonna marry BC because they've got good investment property.
Oh no, that's no good.
Investment property,
capitalism.
Lisa's
baby.
Going landlord on us.
No. The correct answers are bonk BC. Marion, New Brunswick, and Banish, Saskatchewan. That's the correct answers.
At least we can't have Saskatchewan.
Why is everybody banishing me over here?
I think all the reasons at least
it's just business.
Yeah, exactly. It's just based on resources and need and utility.
What is the longest period of time either of you have spent in Saskatchewan?
Almost 24 hours.
However long it took to drive through it. With a stop to get a Slurpee at 7-Eleven. That was it.
Listen, I love Regina. Still, I can live without it.
It's pretty and all, but we'll just annex. Like Manitoba can annex some. Alberta will annex some. It's like you're not going to vaporize. We're just not going to call you.
Look, my wife doesn't want to move, so I've got to make the best of it.
I like that.
She doesn't have to.
She'll just the Marion guy.
But I think marrying BC was the wrong choice, Lisa, as well.
Why?
Marrying BC, because BC's high maintenance. It'd be like, did you bring flowers? No. Did you bring some fresh Whole Foods? And,
you marry BC, then you divorce BC. We didn't talk about the second part of it. And then you get the
starter marriage with BC. Starter marriage.
That's clever.
Boys never think right. Anyway,
what's that BC prenup? Nah, you don't need it.
You don't need that. This is real love, baby. Hey, listen, thank you so much for watching and or listening to Podcast is Broken. You can find us at podcastisbroken.ca, where you can sign up with your email address and you'll get an email notification every time there's a new episode. If you are a paid subscriber, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. And you'll be able to enjoy our improvised theme song in moments. If you are listening to the free version, hey, we appreciate you as well. We really do. Especially if you come from Saskatchewan, because what else you guys got going on there?
Right. Got nothing but time.
Exactly. Nothing but time. But we do appreciate you. And you can find us on all your favorite podcasting platforms as well. Thanks so much and take care. We'll see you guys later.
Take care of yourselves.
See you later.